Okay, we're gonna see if the microphone now works for this per scene audio. Chat's in a weird spot, but hopefully it'll normalize. Microphone's a little airy. Still have that delay as well, which I don't really understand because it wasn't there for a long time. Let's see if I can fix that delay. Let's see if that... No, that didn't improve it. How about that? Getting better. Let's try 100 milliseconds. That looks like it could be a little bit better than it was before. Hard to tell. The delay doesn't look as noticeable. Very strange. I'm gonna try at 150 and see if that's okay. Last time the stream was noticeably delayed. The audio was noticeably delayed. So that looks better. Looks better. Well, at least it's working, so it's something, I suppose. All right. Oops, I don't know what I just did. Okay. Found my switch top removers, thankfully, though I'm waiting on a nutcracker, which is a dumb name, but nutcracker from a group buy that'll open switches much faster than this. So I got Healios and Healios, Leaf 80, and I want to sort of prep this board. I've been waiting to build a TKL for a while, and I was in two group buys, one for the Leaf 80 and one for the Kira TKL. And the Kira one, I don't know when that's actually gonna ship. Hello. Yeah, they're way better than I was expecting. I do not like the Healios at all. I bought some of those when they first came out and tried them and did not like them at all. But the Healios, I stuck into the switch, whatever the hell this thing's called, this lubing board here, and put some SA keycaps on them and played with them for a while, and they're terrific. They feel great. I even considered not lubing them because I actually really like the feel of them unlubed. My only concern is that I can hear the springs in them. And I would love to fix that, but so on the last stream I built the M60 and I lubed Xylants and their V1 Xylants, and I lubed them with Zeal's Geekhack V4 thick lube. And I've been using that lube for like a year and a half now. On any tactile switch I've used that lube for. And I've noticed a trend, which is that even if you go extremely light on that thick lube, there's a stickiness that can occur where there's like a gooiness to the switches that I don't like. And so I lubed this board, and actually typing on it, I basically I need to type on it more to get rid of that feel, but the first few days, there were some keys where I would push them and I could feel that there was thick lube in the switch, and I didn't like it. So when I put the Healios on this tester and I started typing on them, I don't necessarily think they need lube, but I can hear the springs in them, and that bothers me a little bit. So I'm trying to decide. So what I have is I have this package of TechKeys Thin, which is from, I don't know, 6-9 months ago. I never ended up using it because I bought it to lube the Healios. Oh, it's even separated. I bought it to lube the Healios, and then I did not like the Healios at all. So I didn't end up using it. And since then, from what I can tell, TechKeys has switched their lube to a specific named set, and they're not using the thick thin thing anymore. So I don't actually know what's in this. And I tried to do a little research today to figure it out, but I couldn't. I have no idea. It's possible this is the same as what he's selling now. And he just renamed the store item, but I'm not sure. And this mixture is separated quite a bit, which is interesting. So I'm kind of hesitant because this is thin. I know that. And, you know, people used to swear by the Tech Lube Thin, or TechKeys Thin for linears. So I think it's safe. I just don't want to ruin the feel of the Healios. And I think there's a risk of that. God, this is really separated. Which is funny because there's actually a part of the pitch on the TechKeys site was that it wouldn't separate. So it's a little strange that after only a few months it is separated, but I have a feeling on an actual, when applicated, it probably won't separate. That's pretty damn thin. I'm wondering if I should just do the springs and see if it resolves my problem. Because I'm afraid to lube the sliders in these things because they're really smooth. And I don't want to add any drag to that at all if I can avoid it. I really wish I had the switch opener that I ordered. It got delayed just because it's so much faster. So I'm wondering if I should just avoid. You know, I've seen some people say with their linears they even lube the legs or the arms or whatever of the. I definitely want to avoid that lube sticky feeling. Yeah, exactly. The spring sound is definitely noticeable. And I think it's because they're so quiet otherwise. Like, they're quieter than the V1 Silence because they have bottom dampening, which the V1 Silence don't have, as far as I know. Alright. Doesn't look like they did. Oh, they did, but it was so small. So the V2 Xylants, which I also got some of, have the Healios style dampener on the bottom. It's the bigger dampener on the bottom. But yeah, they're quiet as hell. And they're really smooth. And I don't want to ruin that feel. And I saw some people, I think Nathan Kim did a video about the Healios and I forget which, he used Krytox 2304 or whatever it was. And somebody commented saying shouldn't use a thinner lube than that, and he was saying that he preferred the lube he used, but that it can damage switch feel. And it's like, that's exactly what I want to avoid with these things, because the feel is so good, and I don't want them to feel gummy at all. So I think what I'm going to do is see if I can just do the springs, just the top and bottom of the springs, and whether or not that will resolve this issue entirely. Because if I can just kill that spring sound, then I don't think I'm going to lube the rest of the stem or the housing. Then again, I don't see how this is really going to resolve this problem, because that spring sound is coming from the fold, not from the contact, I'm betting. So I don't think this is really going to solve it. Also, thin on a spring is kind of silly, because this is such thin lube. I don't think this is really going to resolve anything. But I'm going to try it on one switch and see if I can compare it. So I guess actually I am going to have to put it a little bit into the stems spot here. Let's see if we can just get a little bit where the spring meets the stem. Cool. It's my least favorite thing about building keyboards is lubing switches. I built so many builds that had switch top removal where I was like, oh, I'll just lube it later. And I never did. It's such a pain in the ass. It takes way too long, especially for a TK. I mean, 80 switches, are you kidding me? Alright. Oh, I don't hear the spring. I definitely hear the spring in a stock switch. Okay. Okay, so I'm insane. That totally killed the sound. I wouldn't have expected it would fix it. I don't know if... Let's see if I can... Let's, here, I'll turn Spotify down for a second. Okay, yeah, let's see if we can hear this. This is stock. Oops. It's kind of hard to hear on this mic. There's a little metallic sound in there. And this is just barely lubed at all. Sorry. It's hard to describe. It's such a minor difference, but it does feel like it's worth potentially doing. Yeah, it is worth doing. I can hear the difference. I can't seem to pick it up on the mic, but I can hear the difference. So that's something. I don't think I need to lube I don't think I need to lube anything else, honestly, because I like the feel of the switch. I guess I could test by lubing the slider and just see if it makes a noticeable impact to the switch, since I've I at least have 20 spares here, so it's not okay. Let's see. It definitely seems like it's worth doing on the spring. So I just did the spring and the... You know what I'm actually going to do is rather than putting it on that, I'm just going to put it directly into the housing. Just a little bit in the slider. So, no sound difference lubing the slider. No sound difference. I mean, the spring sound is still basically gone. Yeah, spring sound is gone. Crazy. This guy, I'm gonna run into A/B test territory here, where if I forget which is which, I'm gonna cause myself to not know which. Okay, the more I do this, there's definitely some bias that's creeping in now. The more I do this, the spring sound is not gone. It's better, but it's not gone. Now, granted, I've got this switch in my eardrum to hear it. At a normal distance, it's effectively gone. It's definitely noticeable compared to the stock switch. Stock switch, if I stick it in my eardrum, I can hear that metal bend sound clear as day. And here, on the lubed one, I mean, I can hear a faintness of it, but I gotta get it right in my eardrum to hear it. 100%, the switch sounds better with lube on the spring. It's worth doing that. It sounds better. Like, by comparison, it definitely is worth doing that. The switch feel and sound after doing the slider slots in the housing, I don't notice a difference in sound, and I don't notice a difference in feel. I don't really notice. I don't think that's worth doing, unless I'm going to go further with it. I could lube both sides of the spring, or both sides of the housing. I could lube the sides. I could basically lube any contact point. But truthfully, I think the sound is all I care about. I really like the feel of the switch, so I don't think I need to lube anything but the springs. The reason I'm hemming and hawing so much about this, as stupid as it seems, is that this leaf does not have switch top removal. So I need to make my decision and stick to it, which is gross. I don't like that. My preference would always be that I could easily swap switches, or I could easily take tops off, and especially for like switch repair and stuff without desoldering. And on a TKL, I'm not going to desolder 80 switches to lube. So I'm trying to be as thoughtful as possible about whether or not I need to lube everything. Since I have the switch, I'm going to have the switches open to do the springs. I guess I'll just do the slider housing because it doesn't hurt, but it didn't really seem to impact it much. So I got to do a bunch of those. I'm pretty sure I saw at some point that somebody on Reddit was running a business where their entire thing was that you could send them switches and they would lube them, which I don't, you'd have to pay me so much to do that. I don't know how much I would require payment wise, but that seems just absolutely horrible, because it's by far the worst part of this, and realistically I'm gonna have to do a few of them and then do the rest off stream, because I'm not gonna sit here for an hour and a half on stream just lubing. But I mainly just wanted to test the test the chat additions to the overlay and just get the process started and see what else would break in XSplit, because every single time I open XSplit there's something new that's broken, which is always fun. This is I rearranged my Jesus. Can I do this in here? I know it's meant to be like done like this, but honestly, every time I do this, the switches just pop right out of the, yeah. Somebody asked me in a comment, I think on the last video, if this was the Sprite, I can't remember his name, lubing station, and whether or not it was sturdy. And I didn't really understand the question, but one thing I think I mentioned is that the slots for the switches are just a tiny bit too loose. So the reason I bought it was I thought I would be able to, put a switch in, and while it was seated, pull the top off. But it doesn't actually work because it just pops the switch out every time. So that's a little unfortunate, especially for switches that have like a sticky side. Just tried lubing a spring on one of mine. Yeah, cool. Oh, hey Matthew, long time no see. Oh, come on. So what I have in one of my, off to the side here, there's a bunch of bins with various keyboard crap in them, and then in the closet in our bedroom, there's even more bins of crap. And one of those bins has like 120 Healios V1, like or maybe second ever group by Healios, 62 grams. They are disassembled and in like this like container that has, all the springs in one bin, all the housings in, all the tops of the housings in another bin, all the sliders in another bin, all this. It's like 120 of them taken apart, which at one point I was going to build a TKL or a 75% or something, I don't remember what, and I was going to lube all the switches, and I started taking them all apart, and it took me, however long, an hour, just to take them all apart. I took them all apart, and then for some reason or another didn't build that board, or delayed building that board, and then box whites came out, I think is what it was at the time, and I was like, oh, I'll give these a shot. I'll order some box whites, and I loved them so much that the next 2 or 3 builds that I did, I used the box whites. And then by the time I went back to use those Healios, I think it was like another revision that had some improvements, and I just ended up buying new Healios, so I never went back and used them. So in this bin are 120 disassembled Healios that I don't foresee myself ever using. Right? And then there's this thing where it's like they're taken apart, so I can't just easily go mech market them. I have to put them back together to mech market them, which is like an hour of work. So they're just sitting there. What I should do is just take the whole bin that they're in, dump it all into a sack, and just put them for free on Mech Market. Like ship it, you pay shipping. They're yours for free. It's your job to put them all back together. Because I don't want to do it. I don't have the energy to do it. It just takes too long. Like even now, how many even was that? It's 11 switches. That's an eighth of what I got to do. I haven't even lubed them. That's just taking 8 apart or 11 apart. It just takes too long. I'm gonna do this half and half. So I'm gonna take, well, actually, you know what? We're gonna do it in quarters. So I'm gonna do 20, lube them. We'll put them back together, 20 more. All of this just so I can not hear that tiny, tiny little spring sound. And that's basically this hobby in a nutshell, is just extreme amounts of work for such a little thing. One of the things I wrote about recently is I've one of the newest iPad Pros, the 12-inch iPad Pro, and I've been trying to, it's like trying to look for a specific Lego piece. Yeah, exactly. Actually, I bought something the other day. I do this thing every year, where at the end of the year, I'll search Google for gift guides, holiday gift guides, you know, and I really like looking at gift guides. Even if I never end up buying anything, I'm a consumer whore, so I love looking at gift guides. It's just, there's something about this time of year, you know, it just brings out the consumer in me. Not that it's not already there. And so I love looking through gift guides, and I can't remember which one, maybe Wirecutter or somebody talked about this, I forget what the hell it's called. This is dumb. I'll look it up and put it in the show notes. But it's this company that makes this super mat or something, and basically what it is it's this sack that can lay flat. It's this canvas or nylon sack that can lay flat. So you lay it flat, and then you can dig through all your Legos. So it's just this big, huge, flat neon surface, but because it's a sack, like, it has rounded edges, so the Legos don't fall out of it really. You can dig through everything. Just make this big, you know, it's this really large circumference, 3-foot circumference. You can dig through everything, and then when you want to clean it up, all you have to do is just pull the zip cord or the cord on it, and it just collapses up closed to a bag, and then that's your, you know, and they can just put it away. Because when the kids started getting the Legos, we've got them in these like plastic bins, and god damn it, I just pushed this through the, for Christ's sake. They're impossible to find anything in a plastic bin, so you're digging and you're just making a huge mess. Did I really just get this in? Good Lord. Making a huge mess every time. You end up just pouring them all over the floor, and then you gotta clean them up. So this is a really cool idea. I'll put it in the notes. I can't remember off the top of my head what it's called. It has a really strange, I should just look it up. It's a really strange name. It's like one of the few things I bought from reading those lists this year. And I didn't even give it as a gift. I just bought it and was like, this is a thing we have now. Now we can not have swoop. S-W-O-O-P, swoop bags. I mean, they weren't cheap. I think it was like $40, $50, something like that. But it's a really neat idea. Because it's the worst digging through them. You can't find anything. And the tendency is just, I would just immediately dump them out. And then, of course, I try to tell the kids, don't do this. Don't dump the Legos out, you know, which is silly because they see me do it every time I'm looking for something, but I can at least clean them up easily. But yeah, it is very much a lot like that. It's also part of the thing about this hobby, I think, one, it's too expensive, but two, it's like I'm going through all this work to build this keyboard, but I'll probably build another keyboard in 2 weeks, and at some point you start to do the math on like time versus result. I'm gonna move this microphone. It's gonna be a little bit in my shop, but it'll be a little closer to my mouth. I can hear that it's too far away. I rearranged here, so it's a time benefit analysis that's a little silly. Like, I built that M60, and it's an amazing keyboard, and I've been typing on it every day since I built it. But you know, it's not gonna be my only keyboard forever, and I switch keyboards back and forth quite a bit. So sometimes there's a bit of a like, I really want to spend 6 hours building this keyboard because I'm gonna do it again. And granted, you know, the fun of it also is building keyboards, excuse me. But lubing keyboards, now it's hot. Lubing keyboards is not fun. It's not fun at all. So I would like, it used to be that I would, when I first started building them, the thing I dreaded was soldering because I was nervous and I had never done it before. And you know, the last time I had done it was like in junior high in metal shop and stuff. So very first keyboard I built, this B Mini that I built, you know, you put $200 into this kit. I customize, you know, I pick all the parts that I want. I buy the switches. I spent a bunch, hours and hours lubing them, all that stuff, and then I go to start soldering them, and I was a wreck. Like, am I gonna ruin this keyboard? And I didn't, because soldering is not difficult. But for some reason, I was really stressed about that. And the very first time I had to desolder something was like, how am I going to do this? I don't know how to do this. And I was terrified of ruining stuff. Now that I'm past that, the only part of this that I dread, other than the cost, is the time lubing switches. Which is why those box switches, especially the box whites, have been such a godsend for me. One, I like the way they sound and feel. But two, you don't have to lube them. I guess you could lube them. I don't think people do, but I guess you could. But I've never lubed any of my whites, and they sound terrific. And so they were like a really easy way, Like the M60 has the hot swap switch, the hot swap, whatever they're called. So you don't even have to solder it. So if I hadn't had to lube those 60 Xylants, I could have built that board in 25 minutes. But instead it took that plus the hour and a half of lubing everything. So, do you sell them after? I should sell them. I have a lot of them in the house now. In the house, as if they're just floating around the house. You go in the kitchen, there's keyboards. In the office, I should say. So, I have not sold a single keyboard that I've built. And it's something that I keep sort of meaning to do, is like sell some of the older stuff that I built. Not because it's worse, but because there are certain boards that I built a long time ago that I just don't use anymore. I don't have an easy way to show it on the stream, but behind me there are three here. I can take a photo of it here. There are three at the time. What I thought was a totally valid number of shelves for keyboards. And then I built more. So this is behind me. You can't see it obviously when the stream is facing this way, but there's these 3 shelves up on the wall, over on the wall there. And there are 9 keyboards on that shelf. And then to my right, in a I can't remember the name of the stand that I bought, but there's this acrylic stand, and it's got the clip, and the accent are sitting there since the last. I built those and have literally never used them. I built them and they went right into this thing. There's the M60A sitting here. There's the other M60A there, which I am going to sell because I don't need 2 of them. The Lake M60A is sitting over there. There's the Leaf 80 sitting here. I've got a ZZ... What the hell is that thing called? ZZ96 that I was supposed to build for my sister. That's in a bin. So, built boards-wise, I've got 1, 2, 3... 12. I feel like I'm missing one. There may be one hiding somewhere. I think there's about 12 that I've built. Actually, minus one of those, because one of those is just stock HHKB with different switches. The other is an HHKB that I modded, that I Nova touched and put silencing rings or whatever the hyperspheres on. So that one doesn't technically count. So I think there are 10 that I've built. 12 in the room currently. Oh, I'm sorry. There's one hiding over here. There's the 13th one over here. There's a lot of them. The ones I actually use day to day. I've been using M60A up until... So this is the very first board that I built. The B-Mini is the very first board I built. It's the acrylic bottom. It's got 62 gram lube Healios in it, of like V1 Healios or V2 like one of the very first runs. This board was the first one that I built, and then it got shelved because I started building other boards. I switched to HHKB. I was doing that for a long time. Then I hypersphered and Nova touched the HHKB, and that became the daily. And then I kept going, and I did the M65A, and blah, 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 blah. When I redid my PC and got back into PC gaming, I wanted a bigger keyboard, and the only thing that I had that was close to TKL was this very first B-Mini. So I don't know why this is called a B-Mini. I guess this is technically mini compared to a full size or TKL. So I switched back to this, and I've been using this daily. It is great. It's a great keyboard. I really like the sound of SA on acrylic. It's a nice feel. Wait, who's out of business? It's a good feel. So this is what the Leaf 80 will basically replace, is this very first B Mini. I just want a little bit... One thing for gaming is I don't like having the 75% connection. Oh, Healios is out of business? Oh, man. That's unfortunate. Wow, Healios was my entry point to this hobby. I mean, my entry point was like Geek Hack and stuff, but Healios was the very first thing I ever did with regards to building my own stuff, because the way that he had his stuff set up was like super straightforward, really easy to configure all the parts. At the time, the acrylic bottom underglow thing was very much the, you know, the meta, I guess I would say, of the hobby. It's not so much anymore, but that's unfortunate. God, this keyboard's dirty. Holy mackerel. Yuck. Anyway, that sucks. I'm sorry to hear that. It definitely was. It was a slow place to order parts from. I guess he was having to have the acrylic and stuff built or made every time for every order, but it was like you would order from Healios, and in the US at least, you would get it 4 months later, 3 months later. It was a really, I mean, compared to a group buy, it's faster, but it was a point of sale system, and you would then, it felt like a group buy, which is a little strange. It has an OG Mac, or OG iMac keyboard footprint, always of that size. I am using a Razer Widowmaker right now, and it's nice and small. Yeah, I mean, my sort of trajectory through the builds that I did was I started with the B Mini 75, and I'm not a huge fan, like I was saying, of the function keys being right up against the number keys. It kind of bothers me, especially in PC games where some stuff is attached to function keys. I'll accidentally hit them. So part of the reason I wanted TKL was to get a little bit of separation, but I built the B Mini and then sort of immediately headed towards 60s. And I built just like a standard 60. I used the Zeal 60 PCB in a I don't even remember what the name of that case is, just some poker style metal aluminum case. And I don't really like the 60 size. So I built one, and then I ended up building another one in a Royal Glam wood case, which has its own problems, but is very pretty. But then as soon as I started using the HHKB, I realized I like that layout. If I'm going to go 60, I prefer the HHKB layout. So then I started down that road and customizing HHKBs, which is insanely expensive. Like, it's so much cheaper to have a completely custom keyboard than it is to buy an HHKB Nova Touch, take the Nova Touch sliders out, buy Hypersphere rings, take the whole thing apart, friggin' Dremel it and screw it and drill it and all that crap. And then you end up with like a $700 keyboard. Which I have sitting over there, and it's silly. And yeah, so the Xeno 75, yeah, Xeno 75 is Zeal's thing, right? The new one. Zeal prefers the Healios or like 7U spacebar stuff, which I don't like if I can avoid it. The M60A has a 7U space, but I'm not a huge fan of. You know what? I'm gonna do this in a different order. I'm gonna do the housings first because they're all in the same spot. I don't want to get lube all over everything. What board are you building, and what kind of bottom row are you going for it? So I'm building this Leaf 80 TKL here. As far as the bottom row goes, I switch back and forth between Mac and PC a lot, so I always build WinKey style. I don't remember exactly what the options are here. Looking at it, it looks like I've got one. Is that 1U or is that 1.25? 1.25U maybe? I don't remember what my options are, but ideally I'm going to go 625 space and then 3 left, 3 right, whatever that yields. Because generally this will be used, even though it'll primarily be used on the PC, they're all connected to a USB hub, and I switch back and forth. So if I can, I prefer to have Control and Meta, unless it's like, you know, I still make caps lock Control anyway, so Control's not as big a deal, but yeah. I never got a board from them, but they always, but I ordered, they ship those quickly. Yeah. 6.2, yeah, so 6.25 is what I'll go with. The only reason I prefer 6.25 over 7U is I almost always use, as I know people don't like them, but I really enjoy typing on SA caps. And when you use a 7U SA cap, there is a significant noise because that is a big ass hollow cap to just grab noise. So that was in my M60A build. I was complaining quite a bit about how there's no one has made a silent stabilizer. And it fascinates me because if anybody was going to do it, shit, now I just forgot which one I did. If anybody was going to do it, I think it would be, damn it. Well, we may accidentally overlube this one here. If anybody was going to do it, I thought it would be Zeal, because he's already figured out how to do it effectively with his silent switches. Putting the dampeners in the top and bottom of the stems. Like, somebody just needs to take a stabilizer and take the little plastic feet and put silencing material on them so that when they hit the top of the plastic, they don't make that clack sound, that smacking sound. And then put them on the bottom so they don't bottom out. And that's it. Like, literally take exactly what the... Oops. Ooh. The bad thing about thin lube is that just about went everywhere. Someone needs to silence a stabilizer because it's the worst part of every build that I do. And I don't understand why nobody's doing it. Now, I know Rama's working on a stabilizer, and his looks definitely more encapsulated and mechanical, so it's possible he has resolved some of those problems. I don't know. But it's the worst part of every build for me, by far. And, you know, I lube the hell out of them, and I stick dielectric in there to try to... You can cut down on the rattle, you can cut down on the other stuff, but you're still going to end up with noise, and it sucks. And everybody just seems sort of okay with it, and everybody's resigned to it, but I don't understand why someone hasn't resolved it. And part of it is, like, we need to lose the modular nature of stabilizers. Like, we need to be okay with the fact that there's going to be stabilizers that are set sizes, and you have to buy those sizes so that we can get away from the fact that a stabilizer needs to be able to be taken apart and changed into different housings or whatever, because that is necessitating too much clearance and tolerance that sucks. It just adds to all that wobble, all that noise, everything. And I just wish somebody would come around and fix it. Maybe we'll get lucky. Maybe Rama will do it. I don't know. Yes, so, Bees, last time I streamed the M60, it's funny because I had the Walker silencing rings out, and somebody, I can't remember who, but the minute somebody entered the stream, they said, oh, I see Walker silencing rings. I was like, oh yeah, by the way, that didn't work at all. So he was using plate-mounted stabilizers, and it could be that that's the requirement, because I tried them with Zeal screw-in stabilizers, and it did not work at all, unfortunately. So I was super jealous because his video, it was drastic, the amount of difference it made, but it didn't work for me at all, unfortunately. Okay, so sorry, how many do I have here? How many is in a row? 7 per row. So 21, 27 switches here. Oh my god, I'm not even halfway there. Yeah, somebody's gotta solve this problem. I just don't get it. I'm just gonna go ahead and put it around the... I'm here, I might as well. And you can band-aid mod, you can lube, you can jam the housing full of dielectric to fill all that space, but what you end up with is mushy, gooey stabilizers that still, no matter what, make noise whenever they top out. Topping out is the... So maybe this isn't the case with... Like, I know it's lessened with GMK and Cherry profile switches, but the top out on an SA, especially on a 7U space, just reverberates like crazy, and so you get that really loud clack sound. Don't get me wrong, totally okay with a clack sound if you're not using silenced switches everywhere else. That's the biggest problem. So like on a you know, a build with box switches or whites or clicky switches, not a problem at all. Bring it on. Even with Healios, like I don't really mind it. But the minute I put Xylence in a board and then hear that sound, it's so discordant with the rest of the switches. Somebody's got to solve it. God, I'm really losing track of where I'm at on these. Hopefully. So today, with this leaf, I'm also going to finally use my SA, what is this? SA Oblivion, I think is what this one's called, with the Git modifiers, which I've been holding for a long time. Not into silence. Yeah, the funny thing is I'm sort of now, I feel like I'm into like no middle ground for me. Like, they've either got to be silenced or they've got to be really loud. So I bought some V2 Healios because, you know, I wanted to try them, and especially with all the stuff that's going on with Holy Pandas, and I bought some of the, you know, resurgent Holy Pandas from Mass Drop, and I'm curious to see how that goes. But I wanted to see, you know, how the V2s felt. So I have them here, and I like the feel of them a lot, but I'm torn as to whether or not I want to use switches that have the middle ground sound, where they, you know, they have the same bump now. It's the same bump as the Xylence, so I can get that bump from the Xylence, but I can be completely silent. Or I think I'd rather go to a louder switch. It's a little strange. And man, I really like the Xylence so much. I know that I've seen a lot of people saying they don't like the Xylence. They don't like the feel of them, or they don't like the sound of them, or whatever. I really like them. Like I said, in my M60 build, I think my regret is using the Zeal thick lube. I think it was a mistake. It just, whoops. Speaking of mistakes, I didn't notice that I didn't wipe that off. I think that thick lube just was, I don't know. It didn't come out, it came out a little too squishy for me. Let me take some of this off of this one. A little too far. It's getting better as I break them in, but it was a little too much to begin with. And I did like the bare minimum lube on those switches too. I just touched the sides of the sliders and a tiny bit on the springs. And maybe the problem was putting lube on the springs. I don't know. I feel like I've done it in the past, but I'm having trouble remembering if I did, so maybe that was the actual issue. But yeah, I think I don't really get the comparison to Holy Pandas. I know that Zeal himself, in his marketing for the V2 Healios, said that they had a stronger or a harsher bump or whatever, a more tactile bump than a Holy Panda. I built Holy Pandas last summer. I don't agree with him at all, but I don't know, maybe I'm just missing something. I really wish XSplit would just keep my display on. That's really dumb. There we go. Yeah, I don't know if I'm missing something, but the bump did not feel nearly as pronounced as a Holy Panda to me. But I know less about the ins and outs of actual, you know, I watch videos of people talking about switches, and the way that they talk about them it makes me realize like I don't know enough about this stuff to really determine. All I know is how it feels when I type with it, and they did not feel like they were comparable to Holy Pandas to me. I'm curious to see what the mass drop Holy Panda ends up, how it ends up being, because of all the drama and all the, I don't know. I didn't really follow most of that at the time, but like I tried to, when everybody flipped out when they announced them, I tried to, you know, catch up a little bit on that, but so it's way more tactile compared to a Holy Panda. Really, I did not. Granted, I just put them in this switch tester here, and threw some SA caps on them and tried them, but it did not feel way more tactile to me. At the same time, to be honest, I'm not sure what I built is the same as a Holy Panda, because at the time, the thing people were calling Holy Pandas were the panda housing or whatever, and then, or whatever housing, I can't remember, and then I think it was, at the time it was Halo Clears or what, I don't remember which one it was of Halo switches and which one I used. I'm pretty sure I used what everybody was calling the Holy Panda switch, but I don't remember. But those Holy Pandas that I built are disgusting with how sharp they are. Like, I actually really dislike them quite a bit. I've literally never typed on that board since I built it. I tried the next day to type on it and was like, no, not for me. I did not like it at all. The tactility is insanely sharp, and unpleasant. It's like typing against broken plastic is what it felt like to me. Like the amount of force you had to push to get past the tactility the bump was just yuck. And the sound from that is very sharp. It's not a pleasant sound at all. Also, the switches were a pain in my ass to build because the housing of the Panda switches, I guess they were, the housing of the Panda switches does not match the Kale style or whatever. So, like, to get the switch opener in there, it didn't work. I ended up having to use a screwdriver to pop them open. It took forever. And then I didn't lube them because it took so long just to build the 60 switches. I didn't lube them, and then as soon as I built the damn thing, I was like, oh, I would never be able to use this without lubing them, and so my plan was to go back and lube them. But then I realized I hate them, or dislike them, and also getting the tops off, once they were in and soldered, seemed borderline impossible because I couldn't use a switch top remover, or like switch top removing tools for it, so I just gave up. Couldn't do it. And so that's actually in my Tina C, which I built on stream. It's in my Tina C. It's sitting on the shelf over there, and I haven't used it since because I find it very uncomfortable to type on. So, oh, interesting. Okay, yeah. So for me, this is gonna sound stupid, but I've actually never really used any of the Cherry switches. I have a I don't know what it is. One of those not Cooler Master. What's the other brand? What the hell is that thing? It's under there somewhere. Corsair. I have a Corsair like mechanical gaming keyboard that I bought because way back in the day I was playing PC games attached to my TV, and so I bought one of those Corsair like lap things that's got a USB hub in it, and you build the keyboard. You like screw the keyboard basically into the big metal lap station or whatever, and then it's got a mouse pad, and so to get that whole thing to sit comfortably, it perfectly fits a Corsair TKL. So I bought that, and I think that has MX Reds in it. And I've used some keyboards in the past that had MX Blues. Like I have a DOS keyboard, I think that has blues in it. But other than that, I've never used browns. I've never tried the vintage blacks. I've never reds. I was not a fan of. I don't like the way they feel or sound. I mean, that keyboard also I just don't like in general. But yeah, I never. When I got into the hobby, like everybody was basically like, oh, if you want to build a keyboard, start with Healios or start with I mean, truthfully, it was mostly just Healios at the time. Or I think Mod had just gotten going, or got going like 6 months later or something. The mod switches started coming out, which I tried some mods at one point and was not a fan. I've been kind of biased toward Zeal switches and toward box switches just because I've had the most... they've been the most comfortable to type on. And then you kind of get into a thing where you start to stick to things you know you like, which is a little silly because if you're building all these boards, like, it's kind of goofy to always use the exact same components, because at some point, you know, why are you building multiple keyboards if you like the components and you've built that board? Why build another one? But that's a sort of a conversation for a different time, or, you know, that's like intervention conversation. RGB browns that feel terrible, another one felt amazing. Yeah, I've heard that too, that people say, you know, some people swear by one type and everybody else hates them, and then you find out later that I've heard people say before, like, oh, browns, they're, you know, terrible, I would never use browns, and then they realize they've been typing on browns and they didn't realize that they were browns or whatever. Like, people don't really know. It's also so strange to like start putting videos on YouTube related to keyboards, and then to go into your channel to like clean something up or check something, and you start seeing all the recommendations pop up. And YouTube seems to have basically two different versions of mechanical keyboard videos. There's mechanical keyboard enthusiast videos, you know, that are focusing on unique switch types, meme switch types, tutorials, you know, like in-depth stuff. You know, your Nathan Kims, your Man of Interests, your Top Clacks, etceteras, etc. And you got all that. And then the other half is like unbox therapy, unboxing a wooden keyboard and just going like, I don't understand what this thing even is. And then, you know, another video of like, I forget that guy's name. Was that Linus Tech Tips? Where he's like, we're going to build a keyboard today. It's going to be MX Blues, and talking about that and just like slamming switches into a PCB and like reacting to, or I saw some video of his where he put like, I don't know, 100-gram springs into the space bar or something, some weird thing like that. And it's such a weird mixture of videos on YouTube. Like your recommendations just become bizarro world. Yeah, Random Frank P also, what a great name. I love YouTube. I love what YouTube does to human beings with names. Like, Random Frank P is such a great name. He's such an enthusiastic guy too. Like, I appreciate everything he does, but I just love the idea of starting a video. It's like, hey, I'm Random Frank P. Or one of my favorites is the guy who does, he mostly does Call of Duty zombie videos, Noah J456, which is just like, he actually had a house fire recently, which was horrible. I posted about it. It was really awful and scary. So hopefully he's going to be able to get back to his normal life again soon. But anyway, there's something about what this age of content creation does to human beings, where you have to start a video by saying, hey, I'm Noah J456, which just sounds like AOL writ large. Like, we've just now, every human being is just okay with being person, random name or random number attached to whatever, and we're just fine with it. And it's totally normal to start that, to say, hey, what's up, guys? I'm Noah J456, and just then keep going. Or, hey, I'm Random Frank P, or, you know, it's very interesting to me. I think one of the people who have I think Marquez Brownlee's MKBHD, I think, is actually maybe the pinnacle of the best mixture of those that actually works, where he uses his own real name mostly, you know, like, obviously people refer to him by his real name all the time, but MKBHD is like close to it's a screen name, but it flows enough that you can say it, so that he gets away with it. But I really enjoy Random Frank P as a name. That's good stuff. Not Random Frank, which would be less strange, I think, to me. Random Frank P. Of all the Frank P's, he's just some random one. which I think is really great. He seems like an okay guy. I dislike his reviews since he either isn't genuine or not informed enough to tell the party. Yeah, you know, I mean, what I would say about that whole thing is that's sort of YouTube in general, is that people have to make content. You know, if you want to make your full-time living on YouTube, you got to make content 24 hours a day. You can never take a break. You got to constantly be pumping out videos. And you also are sort of controlled by your audience. You know, it's totally possible. Like, Random Frank P also does a lot of videos about, like, his office setup or his, you know, studio setup. And, you know, he's constantly doing stuff related to, you know, new hardware and office setup, and all that stuff is really cool. But, you know, as somebody who spends a lot of time reconfiguring my own office, and I really enjoy it, and I love things like recabling stuff and, you know, rearranging, but there's like a maximum level of that type of content that after a while, like, you kind of run out of things to do. And, you know, but if your audience latches onto it and says like, hey, I really like those videos where, you know, you talk about keyboards, or hey, I really like those videos where you show new mice and stuff, like, you kind of gotta go where the audience wants you to go. And at some point you're pumping out a video every other day. There isn't a lot of deep dive time. And also, right, the primary audience is probably not looking for deep dives on things, so you get away with it. And I could definitely, I totally appreciate the complaint about it, but I also can understand why it occurs. Because I think also there's definitely a market for people going like really deep into things, but you look at, you know, if you want subscribers, that's not the place to get them, is for deep dives. Unless you do deep dives on something really specific that also still has a mainstream appeal. Like, if you want to, you know, you want to deep dive on a video game franchise or something, you can find there's a Summoning Salt, I think is the name of the channel. Summoning Salt. He does a video series on speedrunning games. Just like the history of speedrunning. So he'll say like, you know, here's the history of speedrunning for Metroid or whatever, you know. And he does like a 20-minute video or whatnot about the records and how they got there and all. I find that stuff, those videos are so cool. And like, the production value is totally good. Like, it's obviously not like super perfect, but it's totally passable. Like, passable sounds insulting. They're totally well-made videos, and he adds the right amount of detail to everything. And so, like, that's the kind of deep dive, and he's got, you know, 140K subscribers. Like, that's obviously working for him. But if you want to talk about computer hardware and stuff, you're gonna have to go like a tech tips / unbox. Like, Unbox Therapy, to me, like, I don't know anything about the person who runs it, but I find that channel awful. I can't do that channel at all. First of all, also unboxing. I mean, really? I don't know. That's such a weird thing. Unboxing videos feel very old to me. It feels like a thing that's like a pre-YouTube thing almost. That I just don't see the point. Oh yeah, if you are a Twitch streamer and you stop for even one day, if you get sick, like, you may not come back to any money at all. It's crazy. The audience level is so fickle. Like, it seems so strange to me. So yeah, and the fact that they'll leave if you don't play the game that they expect you to play is bonkers to me. Like, you have people who played Fortnite for, you know, 6 months and got really good at, like, Summit was playing Fortnite every day, all day long. And at some point was like, I'm bored of Fortnite, I want to play something else. The minute he started playing other games, like, everybody just left. Like, not everybody, but like a lot of people just left. And that's weird, because to me, the reason you're watching Summit every day, or the reason I was watching Summit when I was watching him, you know, it's about watching Fortnite, certainly, watching him play Fortnite, but it's also just about watching him play. So the idea that you're like, I'm only into this person if they're playing this one game, seems so strange, especially at a time where everyone is playing Fortnite. Why do you need everyone to play the same game? I don't get it. I don't get it. I really need my computer's screen to stop turning off because it drops my frame rate every time. It's super cool. Well, the good news is this chat thing seems to be working for the most part. It's kind of in a weird spot. I will say, picking YouTube as my streaming platform, I should probably switch to Twitch. There's a better support around things like being able to integrate chat a little better. So I apologize if that chat is sort of jumping around a little. I had to basically go in and strip HTML and CSS and use some other stuff to like hijack a YouTube pop-up chat and try to get it to work, so there's some weirdness. But what I'm trying to do is, the reason I wanted to pull it in to the video, one, it makes more sense, and two, I want it in the chat because I want to be able to edit these videos after the fact. And if you need to maintain your live chat history in YouTube, in the actual chat view, you can't touch the videos. You can't even edit off the first 30 seconds. And then you lose chat threads, or chat timing. So I need to get it into the video so I can feel free to edit these after the fact, because every stream starts with 5 minutes of me setting up the stream and trying to figure out which part of the software is broken. I want to get away from that. So actors who can't escape from it. Yeah, exactly. Twitch is basically that. Twitch is in its entirety is people stuck in the same role. Like the entirety of that site is this person plays this game every single day. What a nightmare. Like there are plenty of games I play. I've put thousands of hours into Destiny and Destiny 2 over the years, but there's something about the idea where if suddenly it had to be what I played every single day and I didn't have a choice, I would just feel terrible. It's like, that's not why you play video games, is to grind out the same video game every day, and it sucks that that's exactly how it works with a lot of Twitch streams. And it's why I like sites, why I've been such a fan of sites like Giant Bomb for so long, is that they don't stick to one thing at all. They have the little features that they do and they'll come back to, but I just like the idea of just their person. You're watching for personality, like I want to see their take on everything. And to me, the fascination or the obsession with finding someone on Twitch who plays a game and saying like, I will be a fan of this person, but only if they stay on this one game, and then if not, I'm out of here. It's just very strange. Oh yeah, absolutely. Nobody needs to be playing Fortnite on Twitch at this point. Nobody new, I should say. We got that covered. There's enough of that. I bet there's so many people right now also like looking at, people who are currently Destiny streamers who are hoping and praying that games like Anthem or Division 2 will be viable potentially as streaming options, just so they can play something new, just to get away from what they've been doing every single day for the last 2 years or whatever. Just because it's a lot, especially in a game that doesn't have a lot of content, every single day. I mean, at least if you were streaming something like Diablo or Diablo? Did I say Diablo? Diablo, or I don't know. I never played World of Warcraft, but something like that I would imagine. Where yes, like in Diablo, there's only a set amount of content, but you can rerun it and get different gear and stuff. Whereas with Destiny, it's like, unless you're going to start doing really tricky stuff, 2-man runs, 3-man runs, whatever, there's not a lot of content, which is ridiculous for its own reasons, but there's not a lot of content, so I just don't. The idea that you would not be a niche streamer, like if you were a niche streamer, someone like, SG Slayerage or whoever, or Glad or whoever, those guys that are doing niche streaming where they're, doing really crazy runs, solo runs, 2-man runs, that kind of stuff. If you're just literally streaming Destiny, you just go to your computer every day and stream Destiny, like that just seems boring as hell to me. Yeah, Division 2, I'm very excited about. I would love to talk more about the Division 2, but I signed an NDA that prevents me from talking specifically about the Division 2, but I am hopeful about the Division 2. I guess that's what I would say. I am hoping the Division 2 is good. I'm excited about it. Yeah, it's going to be a little crazy because there's the Division 2, and then there is Anthem, or Anthem first, I guess, right? Anthem is February, and then the Division 2 in March, I think. Is that how it goes? Or is it the other way around? I can't remember. Either way, they're back-to-back like that. I mean, what if they're both good? What would that be like? The Division 1 was so rocky at launch. It was a really fun... It played really well, but you got to the end game and it was terrible. And it was just like, wow, they didn't learn anything from Destiny. They didn't learn anything from all these different things, and I just shelved it. I got to level 30 or whatever it was, level 30, 40, I can't remember. Started trying to play the end game. No good. Shelved it. And then they just kept working at it, and they just built the hell out of that game, and they rethought everything, and they added so much to it, and they built a hell of a game out of it. By the time it was, by now, I guess, by a few months ago, with 1.8.1, I think, was the last, 1.8.4, I can't remember, whatever the last version I put a lot of time into on PC. It's a really solid game. I still think that the Dark Zone is an interesting idea, but doesn't work in practice for me. But the game itself is really good, so I'm super excited to see what Div 2 looks like. I just hope they take all the lessons they learned into the next game. I hope that they didn't start this next game way before they learned some of these lessons, and those lessons need to then later be retrofitted back onto this game, onto the next game, because that would be unfortunate. So, and that's always the risk of the sequel this early in a game this size or whatever, but I don't know. I'm hopeful, I guess is what I would say. Hopeful. Yeah, the content for some games being random rolls is absolutely a thing. And The Division, I will say, had... My wife is messaging me, sorry. The Division had a real serious problem with the random rolls thing for a while, just like Destiny did. But the Division's solution for it, I think, is significantly better than Destiny's because of optimization and calibration. This ability to change perks on the weapons, to reroll perks on the weapons multiple times, to optimize the gear scores up and all that stuff. I think their system is better than Destiny's, and so it wasn't as big a deal to me in the Division when they rolled out a new top gear score or rolled out a new world tier or whatever, because of what you could do in that game to optimize and to calibrate and stuff. Which sounds like some of that is definitely changing from what I've seen in public YouTube videos about the Division 2. Some of that is changing, but we'll see. All right. Let's see if I can hear these. Yeah, those sound good now. How many is that? How many are on each side of this? Is that 7 to 21, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32 on each side? Damn, if it was 40 on each side, I'd be done. With half. I don't know why I just said I'd be done. Boy, it's a lot of work. It's just a lot of work. All right, hold on one sec. Let's see here. I'll close this so I don't knock it over while I move stuff around. Okay, so let's do 8 more. Let's get to the halfway point here. I don't remember if I did this one. I think this is one that I did when I was talking about them. And I'm gonna set that one aside because I don't remember. So I'm gonna do 8 more to get to the halfway point. And then I'm going to take this, test this board, because I've never even tested this. So let's do. Is it raining here? Let me see. There's a thing outside in our backyard that I was supposed to bring in that I did not bring in. And I think it is raining now, which is not good. So, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go grab this thing out of the yard. It'll give me a chance to check this new loading screen that I built, which is gonna say stream starting momentarily because I've only built one version of it. It should say we'll be right back on this version, but I'm gonna give this a test and I will be right back.
So I'm crazy. Won't you bend that back for me? We won't stop. Got your feet both locked. You get to flap with me.
Oh yeah, those things are completely ruined. That's good stuff. Oh, and there comes all the chat back. Wow. Okay. It's really coming down out there, so I ran. Now I'm out of breath. Okay. Yeah, I should have gotten out there earlier. Okay. All right. How many more? Ah, good lord. 40 more? Okay. If I had that nutcracker thing, this would be a lot easier. Or one of those, I forget the other, there's another group that makes a switch remover. You just push it in and it will pop the top off. But I never bought one for some dumb reason. And so I have to use these things, which they work fine, but they're slow. It's like the board will be a Christmas present to myself. if that makes any sense. It doesn't really, because I built like 20 of these this year, but this part feels like a Christmas present for someone else. It's a lot of work. I need to teach my kids how to do this and assign it to them. Okay. Let's see. Oh, one of the things I was doing when I rearranged this. So the setup for the most part hasn't changed since I started streaming, but I've been improving the, even though it doesn't really look like it very well, but I've been improving the lighting, because one of the problems that I have with streaming is that the, it's hard to light in a way that I don't have, you know, intense shadows, which obviously I can't avoid them all, but that I don't have like super severe lighting so that you can't see certain stuff, which I think I've gotten close. Like, this is all white and this is not terrible. Like, it's not the worst. You can still see my face, but it's not like blown out, which it kind of is, but that's a camera issue. So this camera, the primary camera, is a really nice camera and it looks fine. White balance is a little hard to match, even though I'm matching a white card, but even still, it's a little off. Like, I'm not that yellow. I'm a little more transparent and pink than my hand looks in here. But this camera, which is the first one I bought for live streaming, is a cheap camcorder, but it was like the most recommended camcorder for live streaming for your face cam. It's terrible. It's just an absolutely terrible camera. It was cheap, but it's bad. Like, its color tones are bad. Its white balance is awful. It's blurry. Like, even if I go in and manually focus it, it's still not quite sharp enough. It just isn't a good camera. But the benefit is it's small, it's cheap, it can run off power directly without batteries, and it has a clean HDMI out. So those are, you know, the requirements, and so whatever. I have it, so it's the face camera. And then what I had originally when I set this whole thing up is I had a couple of C922 Logitech webcams. So originally I had this camera, the whatever this thing is, Canon something, HV, I don't know. Anyways, little camcorder. I had this as the overhead camera, and it just was crap. Like, oh, there goes the chat, the 5-minute timeout on the chat. It was crap. Like, the way that it showed this was a blurry mess. And if you go back to the very first streams that I did, the color balance is completely wacky. The sharpness is terrible. There's like a lot of noise, all this other stuff. So eventually I invested in a better overhead camera. This is the Sony A7 III. Or A7, what is this? Yeah, 7 III. Shoots 4K. I'm not streaming in 4K for a bunch of reasons. This thing can go to like ISO 36,000 or something, and the noise is very low. So it's a very good camera. I think I'm actually kind of wasting it in the sense that it's just showing this overhead view, but it's a good camera. The webcam, or sorry, the camcorder, not so good. But again, it's just showing my face. Doesn't actually really matter too much. But I have a camera off to the side here that is currently a 922, the previous 922. I'll switch to it real quick so you can see. So the goal here is to get a better camera on that spot and to get it a little higher and point it a little bit closer to this stuff, because I actually find that the overhead view for certain things, I'd prefer to have a closer camera, a closer angle here. So this is an angle of the desk, obviously, that is a little bit more, not so much over shoulder, but it's closer to an over the shoulder shot, and you can kind of see a little closer. So if it was a little bit higher, and it was significantly sharper, because the 922 is just it's a webcam, so it's not meant for, you know, high quality interactions. So even if I get this closer, it you know, it hunts for focus. Like, it still can't grab focus on that, even though it's right in front. You can see it's really trying, and it just isn't a good camera. But this is the plan here, is to do a little research and figure out if I can get a camera into this spot and get it into a slightly better position, so I can get a better look at what I'm working on a little closer up. Because the downside of the primary camera, obviously, is that while it is a sharp fidelity, you know, higher quality image, it is obviously, you know, pretty far away and not necessarily the most friendly angle. So that was part of the rearrange that I did, and as part of that rearrange, I also added one more light, because what I was finding in the past was that I had a really noticeable hotspot I don't remember if I had this light for the M60A. Did I have this light for that video? I must have, because I just did that a week ago. The prior video to that, though, this spot was so hot from the light that it would just blow everything out. You couldn't see anything. And this is already borderline. Like, my hand doesn't blow out, but it's borderline blowout. So what I added, I have these LED like soft lights, basically soft studio lights in the room, and I had two of them. Well, one of them is right next to the A7 up there and is pointed straight down, or close to straight down. And then the other is over to my right, which is at an angle to cast light in this direction, but also sort of splash it a little bit into the room. And what I was finding was that I could not get enough fill light so that these areas were bright enough without overexposing this spot. So I added a double size LED studio light that's pointed straight up at the white ceiling, and it is splashing light across the whole room, which is filling in the space. So hopefully it's a little more even. I definitely there's something about the look of this space here that feels very nighttimey, which is not my favorite. Like, ideally I would be able to make this a little bit warmer and brighter, but I'm sort of I almost always stream at night anyway, so it's sort of reality. Like, you can see in my face cam and in this space, the room isn't quite as doesn't feel quite as night-like as the this shot does. But so long term, the goal would be to improve the camera, the over-the-shoulder camera, so I could get a little bit more close up on some of this stuff. And right now I've finally got all this stuff. Part of the problem with changing and adding these things is I have all this stuff pretty highly cable managed and configured, because this is obviously where I do my work day to day as well. So my ideal goal is not to have the streaming gear getting in my way for actual interactions with work and computers and stuff. So it's pretty good right now. It's 2 C stands. It's hard to, I could always just take a picture of this separately, but there's 2 C stands that are sort of, you know, floating over this space. One is going perpendicular to this shot, that's, you know, pulling the camera in, and the side camera, and then this one that goes over. The only thing that's really currently a bit problematic is this mic, but it's kind of hard to avoid. Like, I need it close enough that you can hear me, but ideally far enough away that it's not right there in that shot like that. But it is what it is for now. So I tweeted about it, but, you know, my half of the fun of streaming is just configuring the hardware and the office for it. And I do long term, I do want to do a little bit of game streaming, not for not for serious reasons. I don't want to try to stream games all the time, but I do play a fair amount of games, and it would be fun to stream them. And I'm trying to decide. When I upgraded the PC that I'm on now, which is my primary game PC, when I upgraded it, I kept most of the parts that have been upgrading, but slowly putting them in an older case. So I actually have a very pretty well configured second PC that's not in use, but that's ready. The goal is to set that thing up as a streaming PC, and if I want to stream games, I will NDI the games so I can run them at full resolution here without losing the GPU power to XSplit, and just NDI them to that, and that's just something I gotta get configured. But It's a lot of pre-optimization that maybe I don't need to do. Maybe I just need to literally throw a game into this XSplit and play it, because I'm sure it would be just fine. I mean, I look at the GPU utilization here, and actually currently it's 24%, so it's actually a lot more than I would have thought. I don't know if maybe XSplit just doesn't report it correctly on a 2080, but 55% graphics utilization or GPU utilization for what I'm doing right now at 30 frames per second seems a little bit high. But what do I know? So yeah, if that were the case, if it really is using that percentage, then I would probably want to actually stream games from the other PC so that I can maintain my frame rates and stuff. Oh, did I just break this switch? Accidentally pulled a little too hard on the thing here. Now the question is chat still working in this overlay? Because I noticed when I came back from the loading screen, I saw all the chat flash on the screen again, which is an unfortunate bug I don't know if I can work around. And then it all disappeared after the 5-minute timeout. But I don't know if it disappeared because this thing is broken or because it actually timed out. So we're gonna see if it's still working, because I can't tell. Oh, and the good news is it's broken on here for some reason for me. Let's try this again. Oh yeah, it's totally broken. Cool. I didn't realize you guys were I didn't realize you guys were typing. All right, hold on. Let's see if we can get it back. Why did you break? Refresh. Whoa. Okay, whoa. Yeah, see, this is the problem with the live chat for YouTube, is that it just it's real buggy. Let's see if I can. All right, so that's good to know for next time, is I'm gonna have to see if that pops in, or is it just completely broken? Because it might just be completely broken. Huh. Well, that is annoying. That is real annoying. So I think part of it is I might have needed to. Wow, yeah, it's totally broken now for some reason. Huh. That's unfortunate. I don't have a good answer for this, honestly, because the way that this thing works, I'm wondering if I can. Oh, you can see it's just like. Huh. I don't actually have a good answer for why it's broken, but let me try. You can see it's trying, but it is not working. That is super annoying. Let's try switching the feed here. Huh. Okay, well, that sucks. The weird thing is it's actually broken for me on YouTube, which is strange. And I don't know if maybe that's why it's not working. Like when I load it on YouTube outside of my stream, I can't get to the bottom of the view. I don't know what that's all about. Huh. Okay. Well, it should. The thing that's unfortunate is what it's supposed to do. I'm wondering if I can. Oops. I wonder if I can force it. It's just not. It doesn't actually seem to be updating at all now. I wonder if I can force it. I'm gonna try something really annoying. I apologize for this. Strange. It doesn't appear to be working at all now. Like, it's not even that it's not showing the... Okay. Weird. It's just cut off. The bottom is cut off, and I don't have a good answer for that. I wonder if I could fix this by changing its height. Nope. So I think the thing that sucks about the way YouTube does its chat is that they put this really terrible learn more box into every single chat. So if you leave chat and come back, you get this welcome to live chat box that appears. If you haven't typed in a while, it will reappear. If you reload the view, it'll appear at the bottom. This thing is everywhere. And there's no setting that I can see in YouTube or on YouTube to get rid of this setting as a channel owner. Like, I don't want that there. I can't get rid of it. And it requires a bunch of CSS to like try to grab it and hide it. And for some reason, when you grab it and hide it, it doesn't hide gracefully. And so it leaves a gap, or sometimes it removes it, but it seems to mismeasure then the height of the overall view. So I think what actually is happening is the reason we're not seeing the bottom of the chat is that currently that welcome to the live chat view is there and being hidden by CSS. And so because of that, the bottom half of the chat is hanging off. And that is so annoying. And I don't understand why this isn't something that you can hide in YouTube. Like, why on earth is that not something I have control over? I get it. I get why it's there in general, but I don't need it to be there. Like, I don't feel... concerned about constantly reminding people of the guidelines of my chat. So I would love to be able to hide it, but I can't. And that sucks. I'm just seeing if... Well, that's super annoying. I don't have a good solution for it. It was working until I switched... So it was working until I switched to the loading screen. And then when I switched back from the loading screen, it broke. I think. It may have broken before then, to be honest. I'm not sure. I don't think it did. I think it was working until I switched off and came back. So there must be something about... Oh, damn. You know what? I know what it is. So what I had to do to make this work, too, is I couldn't... When it reloads, it can break. So what I did is So for instance, if I switch to this face-only view, it uses the shared source here, so it doesn't reload that source. Same with the close-up, that's the same source. But when... Sorry. See, that will break it when I switch to that, because it doesn't load it there. So that is definitely something that needs to be fixed. Well, that's good to know. And we're learning. We're learning every day. That stupid learn more thing is the real problem. And I don't have a good solution for that. Because yeah, now it's just totally not scrolled to the bottom, and I don't actually know how to do it. The weird thing is, when I was testing this, so I tested this privately the other day without running a stream. I just started it locally, and yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm sure they'll fix this problem right away. So bizarre. So bizarre. Okay, what happens if I don't know what this is gonna do, but let's try something really quick. Okay, so if I turn that off, wow, you can see, oh, so it's like, it wasn't scrolled all the way down. Like, how dumb is that? Okay, now let's try switching this back on. Okay, maybe that resolved it. Because maybe what happened was, at some point, for some reason, it didn't scroll all the way down. And so when I was setting custom CSS, it was set, but it was never sticking to the bottom. So I'm gonna try sending a chat message now. We'll see if it... Okay, that resolves it. That's really weird. Oh, okay, so at least I have an idea for how I can fix that. Because there's definitely something I could do with JavaScript to fix that, just make sure it always stays scrolled to the bottom. That might just be the resolution that I need there. Sorry about that. Thanks for pointing it out, because I thought it was a little strange because, not that there's like 30 people watching this, but we were talking pretty regularly, and then I was like, I'll be back in 2 minutes. And when I came back and saw that people were still here, I was like, okay, well, if people are going to put up with me leaving for 2 or 3 minutes and coming back, then it seemed weird that suddenly no one was talking. But that's real dumb. Okay. What'd I miss? I loved coming back to Destiny 2. Haven't played in a few months, though. Had a blast with it. Yes. Base Destiny 2 was great for about a week and a half or 2 weeks, and then you were like, wait a second. There's actually nothing to do here. They did a really good job of making it seem as though there was something to do. And then you suddenly realize, wait, there's nothing here. And then it was pretty bad for a while, and then Curse of Osiris was just hot garbage, and Warmind also just terrible. So Forsaken was a breath of fresh air, and I think they're on the right track, but God, they need more content bad, just much more content. But it is significantly better now than it was before, so I'm hopeful, at least, for a future there, though I'm sure they'll do a D3, in a year, and potentially ruin it all again by not learning any of their lessons. Or learning the wrong lessons, which is what they basically did with D2, is just learned all the wrong lessons. I have never tried vintage blacks. Or retooled blacks. Everybody talks about vintage blacks. Like, it is the one, it's like, seems to be the most common thing, is that everybody loves vintage blacks. I have basically never heard anyone talk negatively about them. I've never tried them. Okay, I'm gonna ask a dumbass question right now. So, are vintage blacks always actually vintage blacks? Like, are they MX blacks from X amount of time ago? Does Cherry still make blacks, or are they only vintage availability now? And if they are vintage, are we in a fossil fuel oil situation where sooner than later there will be no more vintage blacks available to anyone? And am I an idiot for asking those questions? Because it's something that I've thought about multiple times. Like, whenever I see vintage blacks as a thing, I always think, like, are vintage blacks a limited supply that will run out? And what happens then? What happens to all these poor bastards then when they want to build new boards? I guess you could just keep taking your vintage blacks from one board to another, or you could buy vintage blacks from someone else who's running, or who's selling their boards or whatever. But at some point, there's got to be a fixed set of them, right? If they're not making them anymore. Millions yeah, I guess that's probably true. It seems strange because the demand for vintage blacks seems high. So at some point, why don't they just start making them again? Or I'm surprised. I mean, I guess, are blacks linears or are they tactile? I don't even remember. My assumption is they're linears, but meanwhile, I've got my stream open on this other thing like an idiot. What's this here? Linears, okay. So is somebody attempting at least to make an equivalent to vintage blacks? Like, are some of these Kale linears or whoever linears attempting to be exactly like a vintage black, or is it just for some reason nobody's trying, or people are failing? It just seems strange. Like, if people love vintage black so much, what is it about a vintage black, and why hasn't someone copied it? So it seems strange to me. This music is terrible. So my last stream, speaking of broken chat, my last stream I broke the Spotify player at some point as well. So it was like in the upper corner, saying all the parts of the music at the same time and with broken icons and stuff. I didn't realize that was happening. This is all a house of cards, every single part of this. So this time around, when I changed up the overlay design, I moved Spotify into a less noticeable spot and made it a little simpler so it doesn't have as much risk of breaking like that. Because before it was using a bunch of multi-part animations to show each different part of the track and all that, and I simplified it to just track an artist and it just cycles through them, so hopefully that won't break as frequently. Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah. I mean, if part of it is them being worn in, then I could totally see that being a problem for duplication or for mimicking. But they are talked about so much that it does seem surprising that more people haven't tried to replicate it. All right, so getting these. So after these are done, I'll be 16 short, I think, right? Because I think it was 32 on each side. So I'll be 16 short of the whole board, but it's pretty close. So I'm going to finish this process off stream because this is tedious as all hell. Nobody needs to watch me lube switches for 5 hours. But it's good to, this was a good test because it definitely showed me a weak spot in the chat thing. I think I can resolve that by forcing some custom JavaScript to just keep it scrolled to the bottom at all times. I think that will resolve that problem. And definitely adding it to the background of the loading screen so that it does not refresh itself whenever it switches views, because that certainly exacerbates the problem. So that was good. The loading view seemed to work fine. The first time I tested it, I could not hear my microphone in the loading view, which is the goal. I can't tell if that actually worked the second time around, so I'll have to go back when I post this and see if the microphone was indeed muted during the loading screen, because the ideal goal is that when I hit the loading screen, you can't hear me as I'm walking around the room or talking to somebody in the space or whatever. I think the new overlay is a little better. It's a little less intrusive, I should say, because previously it was like filling the whole corner of the screen and it was a little too big. So I think this is better in general, and definitely was worth the test and fixing that. So thank you for hanging out and chatting. I'm going to lube the rest of these off stream, and then I will try to stream maybe... well, this week's a holiday week, but maybe some point this week I will stream and actually build the Leaf 80. I'm excited to get these things in there and see how they feel on a full board. And now that this is more configured, yeah, happy lubing. What a nightmare. I'm not looking forward to this at all. This is going to be my evening, is finishing the other 46 or 48 switches or whatever I have to do. Which is so annoying. Hopefully it'll be worth it. The other thing is sometimes I think it's a diminishing returns thing where I get it all done and go like, now that I've done it all, I don't know if I can hear the difference. But whatever. Halfway there, might as well finish it. It was worth it for these chat tests, so hopefully I can have that fixed for next time. I think I need to pull avatars into this too, given the fact that YouTube, unlike Twitch, doesn't change the colors of each user's name, and they don't add unique identifiers to each user in the chat in HTML, so I don't have an easy way to grab people's names and add color. I think I'm going to add avatars into this so that it's a little easier to tell who's talking, because especially as I'm glancing over there continuously as I'm doing whatever else, it can be a little difficult for me to tell who's talking. So maybe I'll tweak that a little bit, but thank you very much for hanging out and helping me test it. And yeah, I'll stream again in a few days and actually start building this board. And I got a couple more coming over the next couple of weeks/months. The CA66 should arrive at some point soon. I think they're getting close to shipping that, if I remember correctly. The Grid 600, which is making progress. I think they said January. Possibly January. That thing looks really neat. That's a 60%er, but it looks pretty cool. And if the Kira 80, the Kira TKL ships at some point, Maybe we'll build that. I still do want to build a ZZ96 for my sister, so I may do that at some point. And I feel like I'm not thinking of one other, but there's at least three more boards over the next couple of months. So put that stuff together, and yeah, thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.